We need that data. So, thank you.
I have heard a lot of information on the doorstep about muzzling scientists. People are extremely concerned that as a federal government, the Harvard conservatives are muzzling our top scientists. They're cutting off the flow of information that should be guiding policy setting, policy decisions. Evidence-based decision-making is critical when we have good input, good information from our scientists. If we start to muzzle and not allow our scientists to provide information to policymakers, you're heading down a slippery slope to bad decision-making. Whether it's climate change, or as Marcus mentioned, the long-form census, which guides our municipalities in terms of their decision-making ability, or in my department that I've been critic of, and that's fisheries and oceans. And you've seen scientists speaking out because they've been muzzled and fired. Peter Ross now works for the aquarium because he can no longer, in good conscience, and was not able to provide the information to the government, and was, as a result of that, because he spoke out, no longer kept employed with the federal government. This is one of our top scientists that should be listened to, embraced, and part of our good decision-making and policy setting.
Unfortunately, a lot of what you just heard isn't true. So there's been over 4,000, nonsense, yeah. So you see there's a consensus in the room. People have read the Facebook articles. I'll wait. And unfortunately, there's just a lot of groupthink around these. Here's the facts. There's over 4,000 government publications available every year online. These are not muzzled, these are not restricted. Anybody here can go and read any of those government documents. Moreover, many of those government scientists, I've had the pleasure of working a lot with the veteran and military front, will go to conferences and they will openly present their research and their findings and advocate for ways to make the country better. These attacks that come on about the libraries, unfortunately, again, that's just misinformation. There's images out there of these books that are being disposed of because they were made digital. They were put online so people across the country could have access to them. They were then disposed, they weren't just available in small towns where those libraries existed. Unfortunately, when social media sometimes gets involved, people see these visceral images, they get very emotional about it, and they stop thinking.
That's a lot.
Okay, if you want to echo, go do it somewhere else. Okay, I want to tell you guys you are doing a great job. You are halfway there. It's really hard to stand up in front of your neighbors and have to do this. So, greatest respect, we're almost there. We are going to start with Marcus this time. You get the first question. This is a cycling question. I would be really interested in your plans to lobby for the safe and extended bike network for commuters in the Port Moody and Burquitlam riding, especially as the population densifies.
Thank you. Bicycling is a good thing, and it actually fits into a more coherent transit strategy. Yes, I feel that actually in our riding, more could be done, and I would love to see the federal government pick up slack and create a framework to motivate provinces and municipalities to come up with better plans on how to combine the various modes of transportation in their strategy to combat actually jam-packed highways and roads. So, and bicycling, I applaud the city of Vancouver, how they go ahead and find new ways to implement bicycle lanes. It's wonderful. Coming from Europe, as you know, many of you I'm sure have traveled to Europe, you find many cities which make it an important part of their transit and traffic planning. So when it comes to it, I would do everything possible to encourage and motivate municipalities to address those issues and be more bike-friendly.
In order to assist municipalities of Burquitlam and Port Moody, the federal government needs to provide that level of government with the funds in order to do that. So an NDP government would commit to infrastructure spending that would be, and we would be, and what I've heard in terms of listening to the mayors and councils as 6 years that I've been in office, is they want a federal partner to be a predictable, stable partner. Not having to apply for grants for cycle routes or roads or bridges on an annual basis for particular projects. They want to know that there is a commitment from the federal government. The FCM has been very clear about this. They want a predictable, stable funding partner in the federal government. An NDP government would provide that stability, and we would provide the funding to allow for municipalities like Burquitlam and Port Moody and other municipalities across this country to invest in cycling, walking, and other transportation modes. I personally am a cyclist. I support more cycling, and we need to look at alternative ways of getting around, whether it's walking, cycling, taking the bus, or other modes of transportation.
I too am a cycler. For a couple of years didn't own a vehicle and bicycle back and forth to work. I find that the biggest issue with this question is that people can't cycle downtown Vancouver on a daily basis. And unfortunately, most of the jobs are downtown. So the Conservative plan, we want to make sure that we're attracting businesses and creating jobs right here in the Tri-Cities. Again, with our low tax plan and capitalizing on things like the Trans-Pacific Partnership that was just signed. The TPP is a free trade agreement that will give us more opportunities to create and grow the economy here. And I think where we're positioned internationally as the Lower Mainland, and specifically as the Tri-Cities, having a port right here in Port Moody, we have real opportunities to attract more jobs and more high-paying jobs so people who've grown up here, people who want to raise their families here, have a chance to do that, and they can even cycle to work.
Different levels of government should be working together, not against each other. The federal government should ensure that there is sufficient funding for the provinces and municipal governments for their social programs and services. As far as that question of more and more people moving into the Lower Mainland, during the transit plebiscite, it was said over and over again that 1 million more people are going to be moving into this region. I raised on social media, I raised at Port Moody City Council. Who decides this? Why don't we just present with a fait accompli that more and more people are going to be crammed into the Lower Mainland and the hinterland left depopulated as simply to plunder resources?
So cycling is an important part of our future. I too am a cyclist. I did a half Ironman actually in preparation for this. Of the 3, 4 plans that are out there, the only one that has a costing with a line item for green infrastructure is the Liberal plan. The other 2 present balanced budgets, and we already know that within those balanced budget frameworks, there is no money to give to the municipalities. The municipalities can only do so much within the revenue structure they have. They can't put up property taxes anymore to manage the infrastructure that they have. They need new sources of funding, and they need to know that that funding is not going to be taken away if they don't spend it. So the Liberal plan actually specifies a $10 billion investment over 10 years, a $20 billion investment over 10 years that's going to go straight to the municipalities. If they don't use it in a certain year, that money will go into the gas transfer tax top-up that they get, and they will have that money to spend it as and when their projects can get realized. What's important to note here is that the other 2 plans, because they're fixated on balancing the budget, they do not have the money to give to the municipalities, as opposed to the Liberal plan, which will borrow at historic low interest rates. Borrow now while it's very, very cost-effective to do that so that we can build out our infrastructure. Cycling's being part of it.
We're going to start this question on the National Energy Report. Should we delay the approval of current pipeline applications to the National Energy Board until a more thorough science-based process in which expert testimony can be given and subject to cross-examination is undertaken?
Yes. It's absolutely rigged in terms of the system now that we have the National Energy Board making decisions over environmental reviews. This is not the right department to be reviewing. They do not have the expertise to review, to make environmental reviews. Unfortunately, that has been pulled away from Department of Fisheries and Oceans and Environment Canada. The Fisheries Act has been stripped. The Canadian Environmental Assessment Act is gone, or repealed and replaced, and the Navigable Waters Protection Act has been gutted. These are important environmental protections that have been put in place for a reason. The National Energy Board has a role to play on energy, not on the environment. So the review needs to be, or the process needs to be completely changed and revamped so that we have integrity back into the system. We also need social license, something which the Harper Conservatives have lost. First Nations, environmental organizations, even municipalities and provinces are unable to comment in the process fairly. And people, neighbors that are impacted by major pipeline projects don't even feel they have an opportunity to comment when it's going right through their neighborhood. So we need to restore environmental protections, change the process back to what Canadians expect and deserve.
The Conservatives have put forward their position on, in particular, the Trans Mountain Pipeline in a very clear manner. We're going to wait until we get all the evidence and recommendation back from the National Energy Board. Now, I just want to take a moment to talk a little bit about that process. This is a process that weighs the environmental risks with the economic benefits, and then it makes a recommendation to Cabinet as to whether it's going to go ahead or not. This has taken place for a number of projects across Canada already. One I brought in an example last time we were at one of these debates was the Prosperity Mine in northern British Columbia. This was a mine that had huge economic opportunities for northern BC. The province was in support of it, many of the local stakeholders were in support of it, all the local municipalities really wanted to see this project go ahead. And there was documentaries made talking about how this project is going to go ahead no matter what, and it's going to seriously risk the environment. The NEB's review process came back and said this is not a safe project in accordance to the economic benefits. It went to Cabinet, everyone said, oh, here we go.